Let's revisit a popular polymer clay technique, but with a twist that will let you use lots of the supplies you have in your craft studio. Hey there, Sandy Huntress here for CreateAlong with a project for you using the July Summer Picnic subscription box. So you may have seen the faux ceramic technique out there, and if you have, you've probably seen it with alcohol ink. And it works really well. It gives you, well, the look of faux ceramic. But alcohol inks are not the only things you can use. You may have also seen it done with pastel powders, and that works well, especially if you want that kind of crumbly, speckled look. But if you are like me, you probably have a craft studio full of supplies from different kinds of crafts, like paper crafting, or metal work, or jewelry. And I'm here to tell you, you can use a lot of these, if not all of them, in this ceramic technique. So you'll be using these supplies that have been hanging around unloved and get different results. So here are a few of the different possibilities. This one is done with vintage patinas. These are a kind of paint, but they are actually permanent on metal. But we're not using those properties today. We're just using them to get the colors. This one uses distress stain, and it makes sense that it's kind of a bit more muted because the distress colors are known for being kind of old and worn looking. So you definitely get a different look with this. And then this one, this very vibrant ice cream cone, is done with alcohol inks. So pull out your supplies and experiment to see what results you like best. The next step for this project is to choose some kind of a texture. Now, not all texture plates are going to work for this. What you want for this is something that has a lot of detailed texture. That's going to give those patinas little crevices to go into, so you'll have dark areas and light areas, giving you that faux ceramic look. This is the Beachy Keen set that came in the Summer Picnic box. And neither of these other ones are really going to work. They have very nice textures, the beach umbrella and the sunglasses, but I don't think they have enough texture and detail to really make the most of this technique. Next, you need to roll some polymer clay on not too thick a setting. I rolled mine on a number 3 on an Atlas, which is about 1.8 millimeters thick. Now, because this texture is so detailed, you need a fair amount of release. You don't want the clay getting stuck in there or you're going to have problems. So my favorite release is Armor All, and I usually just put it on the clay, but in this case I am going to put it on the clay, and just a thin coating is fine. And then I'm going to spritz it on my texture, because if little bits of clay get stuck in that texture, they're not going to end up in your piece and you'll be missing those areas. So just rub it down into those textures. You can use a tissue to just tap off the excess. Then pick up your clay, put the Armor All side down, and then press all over with your fingers, starting from the center of the design and working your way out. And you can kind of see from the front side if there's any areas that you didn't press in. Now you want to press this rather firmly onto the tile. Again, from the center out. Once you've got it pressed firmly down to the tile, just use a clay blade in one corner, insert it between the clay and the texture plate, and give a little twist. And that should pop it right off. There you go, leaving your piece nicely stuck to the tile and textured. Next, you'll want to take some time with a craft knife and ever so carefully cut out the design. This is why we stuck it to the tile, so that it's not going to shift and move on you as you cut it out. So just go nice and slow. And there's no need to undercut this, so just have your blade perpendicular to the tile. And just peel away the excess clay, and then take a minute to gently refine the edges. Just use your fingers to kind of pat them down. You can kind of smooth it and round it a little. It just looks much nicer that way. When you're happy with the way it looks, go ahead and bake it at the manufacturer's recommended temperature for 45 minutes. When you're baking on a tile, you always need to allow 15 extra minutes for the tile to heat up, because it will soak up all the heat first before it allows it to get to the polymer clay. Once it comes out of the oven, you'll have something like this. And now it's time to decide what color you like best. So after you've done your testing, decide which one you prefer. I like this one with the vintage patinas. In order to do this faux ceramic technique, you need some liquid clay, clear or transparent. I happen to have clear here, but the transparent works fine as well. And one thing that's very important to do, you know, that they only recently started putting on their bottles that you need to do, but I think you've always needed to, is to stir them. I've got just a bamboo skewer here, and you can feel it if it's been sitting for a while. You get all this kind of thick stuff down the bottom. And if you don't stir it in, eventually you'll get down to the bottom and what's left down there won't be usable. So give it a good stir, and honestly for this project you can probably just use what's on your skewer. So I am going to put a little puddle, and this is way more than you need, but you kind of need this much. You need to have a larger amount of the liquid clay so that you can add just the tiniest amount of your paint, whatever it is you're using. The problems occur when people add drops of the alcohol ink or any other colorants, and it ends up way too strong. Now some of these need to be shaken before you use them. What you're going to do is put a drop off to the side. That is so much more than you're going to need. And now I'll use a toothpick and pick up just what's on the toothpick and then color. And this is how you control your amount so that it stays translucent or transparent and doesn't end up too strong. And even in this case, I think I want another drop or so of the liquid clay. If you do this a lot, you may want to save these colors in polymer clay safe containers, like those little paint pots. You can often find them at the dollar store. Make sure that the soft plastic like this, not hard acrylic plastic. The hard acrylic will probably melt the polymer clay, or the polymer clay will melt the plastic. So now I can just apply this to my piece in whatever areas I want. And you can apply it fairly liberally because you really want it to get down into those crevices. That's kind of the whole point of the exercise. Get down in there. And then you can use the toothpick to scrape off the excess. Like I said, you need a minuscule amount, but in order to get a color that isn't too strong, you need to mix up a fair amount. Now you can scrape it off like almost entirely, but I like having a little bit left on the surface, and it will get lighter after it as it bakes. So you have that look of ceramic. Clean off my toothpick and then repeat with the other color. So here's the vintage patina color clay that I'm using for the ice cream cone. This one's called Ruby. But again, I just encourage you to go into your studio and see what you can find that you have. And if you do want that kind of speckly look, you can always shave in some pastel powders. But again, I would suggest you do it the same way I did it here, putting your colorant off to the side and adding it small amounts at a time. That way you don't end up with a huge oversaturated puddle of liquid clay that you'll never ever be able to use. All right, and then repeat the same process on this side for the cone. I'm going to drill a hole and make this into a pair of earrings. But another really cute thing that came in the box is this darling little notebook. Maybe add a row of ice cream cones to it. Isn't that adorable? You could glue on some ribbon, glue these on, and just have a really cute little sketchbook to bring with you. So once that's just the way you like it, go ahead and bake it again for half an hour. Once it comes out of the oven, it will look something like this. And now we can add a backing. And I have a really fun trick for you for adding a backing. To add the backing, start with a little liquid clay on the back. And by the way, if you're doing a design that's very detailed and maybe the toothpick doesn't give you enough control, just one of these little brushes, like for miniatures, will help you get into all those tight areas. So just a very thin coat of liquid clay on the back. Here's another sheet of my white clay. You can really use any color here that you want. Rolled to a slightly thinner setting, about 1.5 millimeters. And I'm not even going to cut it. I'm just going to rip it against the edge of my shape. Isn't that easy? And then I have a super cool trick for you for decorating the back. You know, often we add it very carefully and add a texture. Oh, none of that. Instead, I'm going to use some of this glitter that came in the summer picnic box. This is CreateAlong's glitter, and it is heat safe. Not all glitter is going to work with this because glitter is essentially little tiny bits of plastic, and it may melt in the oven, but this brand isn't going to. So take some of your glitter, be resigned to the fact that there will be glitter everywhere. And now press your piece into the glitter. You can press it up along the edges. Do try to flick it off of the front because it may kind of fuse when we're baking. And look at that. Just keep pressing it in until it's covered as much as you want. Take a clean, dry brush to remove the glitter from the front, and then bake it one final time. After baking, it's going to look something like this. You might want to take this to the sink and just rinse it, and rinse off any of the loose glitter so it's not falling all over the place. And this is such a super fun and easy backing for your earrings. To make them into earrings, you just take a drill bit. This is a 1/16 inch drill bit. You can get it at like Home Depot. It's for going into the chuck of a drill, but Polymer drills so easily. You just put it in, pull it out, and that little loop in the whipped cream is the perfect place to drill a hole. Get yourself an eye pin and a little crystal if you like. I've chosen a red one here that kind of makes me think of the cherry on top. Now, this second loop you're going to need to make a little bit bigger so that you have enough thickness to go through the front and the back of your ice cream cone and let it dangle. So in this case, I've marked my pliers right where I want it. These are round nose pliers. So you just put your wire there, wrap it until you can't wrap it anymore, and then bend your piece, quarter turn, and finish wrapping. Use flush cutters to trim that. And then we'll bend this loop so it stands right over that. And I also want both of these loops on the same plane. So as you're looking at them, you're looking through both holes at the same time. Then open up an ear wire and add that to the top loop. In this case, I need to give my ear wire loop a twist so that my earring faces front. And there you go. An absolutely adorable pair of faux ceramic pieces, perfect for wearing to your next summer picnic. Once again, this is Sandy Huntress for CreateAlong, wishing you happy creating.